Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Washington Heights today. Just before we jump into the message, I want to share a couple things with you by way of announcement. You may have seen that part of our wall here is gone, our LED wall. It is over in the new auditorium there as we get ready for that. About 2 months, and we will be doing this over there, and so we celebrate that. And I mentioned this last week, and we had some additional folks join us at 8 o'clock. If you, between now and when we open over there, can join us at 8 o'clock, that would be a huge help, as we have just a lot of people joining us. We're so excited about that. We want to make sure that there is a place for everybody to have a seat. And so if you can help us with that, plenty of great parking spots available at 8 o'clock. And so join us there, and that would be a great help. So here we are in a series entitled Walking with a Limp. We are tracking with a man by the name of Jacob, and he is on a journey. He's on a journey to come to know who God is, but he's also on a journey with the people who are around him. And sometimes as we look at what the Bible contains, it takes us in this direction to God. Sometimes it takes us to each other, and today is one of those each other kind of moments where we're going to look at dealing with difficult people. Now, when it comes to difficult people and the dysfunction in this world and the broken people that there are, I believe there's one genre of music that is very much in touch with this and makes it a part of their music. I'm speaking, of course, of country music. They seem to understand this. There's a couple titles of some country songs. If you know these, feel free to sing them. Drop Kick Me, Jesus, Through the Goalposts of Life. I don't know what's going on there. I don't even know what that means. If you know what that means, let me know. How Can I Miss You If You Won't Go Away? Those Hallmark card moments there, right? I would have written you a letter. That's not a typo. But I couldn't spell yuck. If my nose were full of nickels, I'd blow it all on you. It just warms your heart, doesn't it? My wife ran off with my best friend, and I sure do miss him. And one more. I'm so miserable without you, it's like having you here. Right? There is something about the brokenness of people that I think clues us in and tunes us in. You know, I think reality TV has discovered, the code on this, cracked the code, that people just like to watch other people in their misery and their dysfunction and their struggles and their difficulty. And as we look at that, maybe sometimes it makes us feel better about ourselves with that. I don't know exactly what it is. But the reality is that in this world, we're going to deal with some difficult people. And here's what I appreciate about the Bible. The world over, there are cultures that have what is often referred to as books of virtue, where there are stories of people who emulate and live out certain values and characteristics, and we go, that's what we should be like, and that's how we should act. Is that what you find when you come to the Bible? Nope. And here in the book of Genesis, and we could pick almost anybody in the book of Genesis, Jacob is a prime example of this, of somebody that we look at and we go, that's not what we should aspire to. Instead, man, that's real. And that's the human experience. And this story is very old, but the dynamics are very current and very modern, and they are very relevant. Because at a time in the world where the world was just completely broken, one day God comes to a man named Abraham and says, I'm going to ultimately redeem this world. And how's he going to do it? He's going to go to work through one man and ultimately create an entire nation of people through whom one day would come one who was unlike any other. And that is none other than Jesus. And so Jacob is in the line of that, and ultimately even Jesus will trace back that lineage to a man named Jacob. And when we meet him today, he's a difficult person, and he's surrounded by difficult people. And if you've been with us, you know that he has a history of being difficult. Let me catch you up real fast. When we meet Jacob at first, he's the younger of fraternal twins. His older brother is named Esau. And in a moment of his brother's weakness, he takes advantage of that moment to trade his brother's birthright, which brings so many important things with it, for a bowl of porridge. Years later, his dad is on his deathbed. He's blind, he's feeble, and his hours are very few. And there is this cultural thing of giving a deathbed blessing to the oldest son. And Jacob dresses up like his brother, takes advantage of the blindness, comes in. "Is that you, my son Esau?" And Jacob says, "Yep, it's me." You know what Jacob means? Literally, his name, it means deceiver. And that's who he has been. And when they find out that he dressed up as his brother Esau now wants to kill Jacob. And when we left off last week, he is on the run for his life. And that's where we pick up the story today. Now, we're going to walk through this story for a bit, make some observations along the way. Then we're going to talk about some principles from this story that help us to deal with difficult people, because we all have them. Genesis 29:1, "Then Jacob continued on his journey and came to the land of the eastern peoples." This is some of his relatives. They're 500 miles from where all that other stuff happened in his life. And he was told by his mom, "Go to the land of my relatives and you'll be safe there." After Jacob stayed with him is Laban, his uncle, and we'll meet him in a moment. After Jacob had stayed with him for a whole month, Laban said to him, "Just because you're a relative of mine, should you work for me for nothing?" He shows up on his doorstep penniless. He goes to work for his uncle. Now his uncle is trying to basically, negotiate a contract with him. "Tell me what your wages should be. What do you want to work for?" And I think as this story plays out, here's part of the theme of this and the undercurrent of this. Because when he got the birthright and when he got the blessing from his father, here's what came along with it. God is going to be with you. You're going to become a people. God is going to ultimately one day create this nation. Through you, there will be an entire people, and God will ultimately work redemption. Well, here and now, he's a long way from that. He's not a people. He's got nobody other than his relatives that he just met. He's got not a penny to his name. And so how do you cope with some of the disappointments in this life? I'm not where I thought I would be. I'm not where, God, you said I would be. What do we put in the place of that emptiness? And we're going to see that play out in Jacob's life. Now, Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. So here are these 2 young ladies. Leah had weak eyes, but Rachel had a lovely figure and was beautiful. Now, what are they trying to tell us there? Now, when you see weak eyes, right, I've got contact lenses in right now. You could say in one respect I have weak eyes. I can see up close, but I couldn't see far away without that really well. So was this, Leah needed corrective lenses, but man, Rachel could see for miles. She just had 20/20 vision. That's not what this is. This is the only place in the Bible where we see someone's physical appearance mentioned like it is about Rachel. She's stunning. And then there's Leah. And you see the contrast that is here. And the writer of this is helping us to understand that there is a stark difference between these 2 young ladies. And how does that play into the story? Jacob was in love with Rachel and said, "I'll work for you for 7 years in return for your younger daughter, Rachel." Now, when we see that, we think, what is going on there? There's some cultural stuff happening here. And remember, he's got not a penny to his name. And in that culture, in that day, it was customary for a suitor of a young lady to give a dowry, to pay a dowry to the father of that future bride. And so this is just the way it was there. Bible often is not telling us this is what you should do or not do. It's just saying this is the way it was. And so here is Jacob saying, "I will work for you. That will be my dowry payment for Rachel, your younger daughter." Now, here's the thing that's going on here. Archaeology tells us that the normal going rate of a dowry payment in that day was 30 to 40 shekels. Anybody got any shekels on them today? That was the monetary unit there. And so when you look at this and you say the normal amount of income for a month's wages was 1.5 shekels, 1.5 shekels, and you do the math over 7 years at 1.5 shekels a month, what Jacob is signing up for is 126 shekels. 30 to 40 is the norm. I'll work for 7 years, 126. What does this tell us? Jacob, who took advantage of his brother's appetite in a moment of weakness, is now revealing an appetite of his own. I'm not even driving a hard bargain here. I am head over heels. She is what I need, and she is what I want. And because I have not wound up where I thought I would be or where God thought that I should be, I will put this in that place of emptiness and disappointment. But he's willing to do, way above and beyond. Laban said, "It is better that I give her to you than to some other man. Stay here with me." What do you make of that response? Jacob is saying, "Hey, look, here's the deal. I'll work for 7 years for Rachel." Does he say, "Yes, let's shake hands on that deal"? Not exactly, because what Jacob, whose name means deceiver, has just met is his match in his uncle Laban. And he's going to take advantage of somebody who just put his cards on the table, that I too have blinders on to a bigger picture here, and I want what I want. And now Laban is going to use this moment and take advantage of it. So Jacob served 7 years to get Rachel, but they seem like only a few days to him because of his love for her. Cue the sappy music there, right? And this is like a Lifetime movie, right? In this moment, we think, oh, that's so sweet, and what a love story. Then Jacob said to Laban, "Give me my wife. My time is completed, and I want to make love to her." There are a lot of Jewish commentators after that time who really struggled with this statement because it is so upfront and so crass that they have a hard time explaining it. But what it clues us into is who Jacob is and where he is in this moment. He says something that nobody in that culture says. So what is he wanting and looking for in this moment? Thinking that it will ultimately satisfy him is the one. So Laban brought together all the people of the place and gave a feast. We're going to have a wedding feast. And those went on for days in that time. But when evening came, he took his daughter Leah, the oldest, and brought her to Jacob, and Jacob made love to her. We'll get back to that in a second. When morning came, there was Leah. So Jacob said to Laban, "What is this you've done to me? I've served you for Rachel, didn't I? Why have you deceived me?" So I think there's an automatic question here, right? So Jacob gets taken advantage of here, and the older daughter is put in the place of the younger daughter. And I think we say, how do you spend your wedding night with somebody and not realize that it's somebody other than who you think it was supposed to be? Well, remember, in that culture, we're told there's a great feast, so there were adult beverages that were flowing all day. And the bride in that day customarily was veiled from head to toe. And at night, there's no electric lights. And remember, there's also an uncle who is working to deceive and use the situation to his advantage. And so all those things together bring about this great deception. And when you see these words, "Why have you deceived me?" there's an incredible amount of irony in this moment. That question is the exact question that his father Isaac asked when Jacob dressed up like his brother and went in and said, answered the question, "Is that you, Esau?" "Oh yeah, it's me," said Jacob. And his father says, "Why have you deceived me?" And the other irony in this moment, remember what Jacob's name means? Deceive, deceiver. And so in his question, here's what he's saying. Jacob asks the question, why have you, in the original language, Jacobed me? And in this moment, it's as if a mirror is held up to Jacob. And he is doing to you what you have already done. And Jacob, what is it like to stand on the other side of yourself and experience what you have done to other people? And it's amazing to me that in this moment, Laban thinks, how are you going to get away with this? How do you think, that you're going to, take advantage of this moment and have Jacob not come and say, that's not what I agreed to? Laban replied, it is not our custom here to give the younger daughter in marriage before the older one. Literally what this means, didn't I mention that, by the way, 7 years ago when we struck that deal? I didn't exactly say yes. I said it'd be better if I gave her to you. I didn't say when or how. But here's literally what he's saying in this moment. Around here, unlike where you came from, we do not give preference to the younger over the older. And there's another moment in Jacob's life where he comes face to face with what he did there to gain an advantage in a nefarious way. And Jacob, you have just met somebody who's just like you. You have met somebody who's got plenty of issues in their life, and he's doing to you what you did to others. And there was deception in the dark on the wedding night, but isn't it incredibly ironic that it kind of pictures us back to the deception that took place in his father's blindness when he asked, is that you, Esau? Oh yeah, it's me, Esau. But it's not. There was deception in the dark there as well. And then Jacob goes on to work for 7 more years for Rachel and eventually winds up with 2 wives. I think there's another question that comes out of that. So is the Bible saying, it's cool to have more than one spouse? The Bible has descriptive and prescriptive things in it. Descriptive are, here's just what happened. Prescriptive is, here's what to do. What is it that God has in mind for marriage? At the beginning, it says, for this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. What happens on the other side of that, you don't see the Bible, saying this is a great thing. But it's simply the way that it happened in broken people's lives, and God works even through that sometimes. One of these young ladies is going to be in the line of the Messiah, Jesus. Is it going to be Rachel the Lovely? Or is it going to be Weak Eyes, Leah? And in God's sense of coming all the way down to our brokenness, you know who it is? It's Leah. And sometimes the cultural categories in which we put other people are not the ways that God thinks. So here's a couple of principles here, and we're going to make our way to dealing with some difficult people. Our limp can come from something. And in times in our lives, there are circumstances that happen to us, job situation, a terrible boss, maybe it's a diagnosis of one kind or another, the economy goes bad. There are all kinds of ways in which, our limp as we walk through life can be from something, or like in this story, and probably in our lives, it can also be through someone. And so here's kind of the, bottom line of what I want to just help us to understand today. Everybody has a Laban. Everybody has a difficult person in their life. So how do we deal with difficult people? And based on this story, let me give you some things here with the time that we have left. So here's the first thing. How do we deal with difficult people? Recognize the Laban in you. There are these moments where Jacob has a mirror put up in front of him to say, what does it feel like to be on the other side of you? Because right now, that's exactly where you are. And so when we look at this story, I think one of the things that helps us to maybe come to terms with is that we need to own our own issues, that we're difficult. And the reality is, you all have a Laban, I have, a Laban. You are somebody else's Laban. And I am probably many people's Laban. And that's just the way that it works in this world. It doesn't all just go in one direction. Many, many years later, Jesus is with his disciples, and one of his guys, he was just, foot and mouth kind of guy. His name is Peter, and he's awesome because he just, many times just put it out there. And one day, Peter comes to Jesus and he asks this question, how many times should I forgive the people who sin against me? 7 times? And it's almost as if that question is posed in this way, that, hey, I'm always the one who is wronged, and I sit in this position, and other people are here. How many times do I have to put up with these difficult people? And Jesus tells him, not 7. That was above kind of the cultural cue of that day, but 70 times 7. Because, Peter, do you think you are without the need for forgiveness? Jesus didn't say that. I'm kind of reading between the lines there. And so, let's own and recognize the Laban in us. That all that the world has is difficult people, and that includes you, and that includes me. Another principle, here Laban's backstory. How easy would it be for Jacob to show up in that place and talk about and justify and rationalize his own deception, saying, hey, look, you don't know where I came from, and you don't know the family I grew up in, and all these statements would be true. My dad favored my older brother, and yeah, my mom favored me, but there were all these dynamics around there, and you don't know what that does to somebody to have your dad kind of look past you all the time and not think highly of you and not tell you that he's proud of you and all those kind of things. All of that could have been true. You know whose backstory we never get here is Laban's, and it's real easy for us to look at him and go, man, what are you doing? But could it be in this moment that Laban is trying to be a good dad and take care of his little girl that everybody has looked past? And he's responsible for her, and he feels the weight of that responsibility. Now, what he did, was it right? Absolutely not. And the end never justified the means, but what it helps us to understand is that there's often a motive behind the actions. And here's the way that it often works in this world. I'll evaluate myself based on my own motives, and my own motives are always right and good, right? Nobody sets out to do anything bad, neither do you. So I'll evaluate myself by my motives, but I'll evaluate you by your actions. But I often don't know what's behind those actions. And so there's a call for us to lean into that and understand where people are coming from, because nobody just falls out of a clear blue sky. Another principle, expect people to be Labanese, not Lebanese, Labanese. And what that means is expect people to be difficult. And if we go through life with this idea that I'm going to hold people to a standard of perfection, you know what you're going to wind up doing? Being perpetually disappointed with people. And that's just a hard way to go. That's just setting yourself up for being miserable. A number of times in the New Testament we're given these commands. And again, this is prescriptive, not just descriptive. It says, forgive others as God in Christ Jesus forgave you. And so we're called really to do to others what we would want them to do for us. And my guess is in those moments we'd want a little bit of grace and for people to understand where we're coming from. And that's good and that's right. Well, guess what? Your Laban deserves that same thing. There are people who prepare food ahead of time. My son is one of those people. He cooks on Sundays for the whole week and then eats those meals as he goes through the weeks, kind of meal prepping. As we go into life, I wonder if we should grace prep for people, realizing that we're going to need it at some point, and God willing, someone else will be doing that for us as well. And so expect people to be Labanese. Another principle, don't let Laban's behavior dictate yours. How easy would it have been for Jacob on the other side of the moment of deception to say, hey, that's not the deal I signed up for, and you violated our contract. We're going to get this settled legally, and you did wrong to me and all of that. You know what he does? He goes right back to work. And he begins to have this awareness. He had an encounter with God last week. He's aware now that there's a story that God is playing out. And maybe in this moment, he begins to realize that God is also at work in his personal life and in his heart to make him over into somebody else. And at the end, we'll see him fully connected in his story to God. But in this moment, he's not going to let Laban's deception turn him and spiral him further and further downhill. But he just goes back to work. And we begin to see Jacob shine in this moment where he does not respond in kind. And then also, Laban doesn't write your story. God writes your story. And as we mentioned, God shows up to Jacob when he has his head on a pillow that is a stone and shows him a stairway and ultimately makes promises of where all of this is going. You will be a people and I will take you back to the land. These are promises that God makes to him. And ultimately, Jacob's story would join the story of God and it would turn out exactly according to the purposes of God. Have you joined your story to God's story? Do you know that God wants to enter into your life, your day-by-day journey through this life? And sometimes on difficult days with hard people around us, it can be hard to really raise our view and see where God is and who he is and all of that. And here is a crucial moment in Jacob's own journey. Have you joined your story to God's story? He wants to take you somewhere. And he wants to make you over. And the whole arc of what God is doing here to redeem and restore, it's an invitation for us to walk together with him. And so as we deal with difficult people, don't let the dysfunction of difficult people determine your decisions. Let God write your story because he wants to take you somewhere. So let me ask you this and close with this. Who's writing your story? And are you letting some of the difficult people influence you in directions, cause you to respond in certain ways to ruin, day after day after day of your existence here? Are other people writing your story? Or are you letting God write your story as you join your story with his? Who's writing your story? Would you bow your heads together with me? And Charlie and the team are going to come back out here and they're going to lead us in a song of response to that and just getting our focus and our attention on God. But in that moment that we have you taken that step of, beginning even to join your story to God's? And that's by putting our trust in him. Going beyond the awareness that God is real, that God exists, but making it personal. And saying there's not just a God out there, there's a God in my life who longs to enter into my existence and to take me somewhere good, and to make much of this life that he's given to me. And Lord Jesus, as we live out our days here, thank you for the God-given value that is infused to every person. But God, help us also to recognize that we come into this world broken. None of us, just by sheer willpower, can get it all right all the time. What we say, what we do, our motives, and the way that we treat other people, God, all of it, at different times, can just be a mess. So thank you for coming all the way down and entering into broken planet Earth and inviting people like us to belong to you. And God, may we join our story with yours all the more. And that each and every day, even on the hard days with others, God, you are taking us somewhere that is leading us to you and to more of what you have for us. And so, God, help us to journey in a way that honors you and reflects the goodness, the grace, the love that we have received from you. Help us to make it real in the relationships that we have. And we ask you to lead us in that direction, God, for your name's sake. So we pray it all in Jesus' name. Amen.